Everybody thought Asheville, North Carolina was a climate haven because it was relatively far inland, it had a cool climate, and it had plenty of water. But we found out that the concept of a climate haven is not necessarily a valuable one. It only takes one event to cause a catastrophe, and that is an unimaginable catastrophe on the level of Hurricane Katrina. But for a part of the world we didn't think was vulnerable to hurricanes. But anytime you have mountains within reach of the coast, you can get an extreme rainfall situation like we saw with Hurricane Helene. So a little surprising that we saw this. I was not expecting quite as big a situation as we saw there, but you know, surprises are the new normal. The weather's chaotic naturally, and when you combine that natural chaos with increased variability due to climate change, more energy in the atmosphere, heat is energy, and it's going to be the case where this extra heat energy is going to manifest itself as more extreme weather, heavier rains in this case, because you can put more water vapor in the air with a warmer climate. And that's exactly what hit North Carolina with Hurricane Helene.
Well, in terms of climate havens, another place that was considered a climate haven until last few years was upstate New York, northern Vermont. And now we've had a series, pretty much illustrating your thesis about mountains and impact of rainfall. Want to say anything about that?
It was thought that northern Vermont was a climate haven too, but since the year 2000, northern Vermont has had a top five number of federal disasters, over 10. So the only place that's had more, I think, is southern Louisiana and Kentucky. So climate haven, northern Vermont, not so much. There are other places that you also would think would be climate havens, and they have a greater probability of being so if they don't have mountains and they're further from the coast. Anytime you're within a few hundred miles of the coast, you can get one of these, what we call atmospheric rivers that deliver a lot of moisture and can cause incredible flooding, like we've seen in Vermont, like we saw in North Carolina with Hurricane Helene.
Well, you and I, live in what's considered to be a bit of a climate haven here in Michigan, and yet we are seeing the impact of extreme storms that are jacking up insurance rates, leading to blackouts and infrastructure failures, flooding. Um, what can we expect here in the upper Midwest?
Michigan really is the best climate haven I can think of because we have plenty of water. The Great Lakes help buffer our climate so it's not so extreme, and we're not so hot because we're pretty far north. And if you look at extreme weather in Michigan, sure, we have our share of extreme flooding. We had several dams fail from a flood in 2020, and we have our share of severe thunderstorms, derechos, hail, that kind of thing. No place is totally safe. You can always get an extreme weather event that's going to, kick you in the teeth, and certainly Michigan's no exception. And it will have its share of unprecedented weather disasters. Every place will in the next 30 to 40 years, I'm convinced.